Hello, and welcome to episode 3 of the Middle Ground podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about what it actually takes to change your life, the practical tips, the mindset changes, the identity shifts, everything that you're going to need in order to change your life for the better. Big change coming to the podcast. I've been told that I shouldn't drink while I'm recording a podcast, but I'm not going to stop having coffee because I like it. So, there will be times when everything goes quiet, where I press the mute button on the microphone and sip coffee, and then I'll come back. That's the new change. That's the big implementation that we're going for here. However, let's dive straight in. I'm going to break down the more boring, less sexy truths about progress, about what it actually takes, the monotony, the consistency, the patience, the ability to manage your own emotions. There's a lot of things that progress does require, and not a lot of them are very sexy. That's where people get stuck most of the time. They get caught up in the newest thing, the most exciting thing. It's why fad diets are so popular, unfortunately. They provide you with a sense of excitement that someone telling you to track your food, hit your protein, up your steps, train 3 times a week. That doesn't give you that. That doesn't give you that sense of excitement and motivation. And it's just not as sexy. But if someone says, you're going to cut out everything except meat, or you're going to cut out carbs, or you can only eat stuff that cavemen would eat, all of this kind of stuff really gets people weirdly, because to me, I'd rather shit in my hands and clap. But it gets people excited because it's a big change. People want big changes. They want overhauls. They think that to get the result they want, they have to change everything. And it is true to some degree that big change requires big change. However, it's not big change in the way that you overhaul everything. It's big change in the way that you act, and the way that you think, and the way that you react. Those are the big changes that I mean when I talk about, big changes requiring big changes, not flipping your entire life upside down to a point that you can't sustain. Because when you get the progress from that, have a think about this. The progress that you get from a lifestyle you can't sustain, how on earth do you think you're going to sustain it? You won't. It doesn't work like that. You're not going to be able to sustain the results of a lifestyle that you can't sustain, by definition of the fact that you can't sustain it. That was our first coffee break. So, again, when it comes to consistency, you need to think about what consistency means to you. It means a lot of things to a lot of different people, or a lot of different things to a lot of different people. It might mean for you tracking your protein each day and training 3 times a week. For some people, it might be tracking every morsel of food that goes into their mouth and training 5 times a week. For some people, it might just be getting their steps in. And you need to lay out a clear definition of what consistency is for you, what your inputs are, that over time will get you to the goal that you want to, and track how consistent you are with them. Again, there's an idea of a consistency calendar, which I quite like, where you have your goals laid out day by day by day by day by day, all of your inputs, and you tick them when you do them and you cross them when you don't. And it gives you the ability to look back. If you get to the end of, say, a 2-week period and go, I haven't really seen any progress this week, and you get a little bit annoyed about it, I understand. It can be very frustrating. But then you look back at your consistency calendar and you think, or you see, actually, I've only been consistent for 4 out of 14 days. Those are the only times I've hit everything on my input list. So you can't be annoyed about the progress you're making. You can be frustrated that you haven't necessarily put in the actions that you wanted to, but you can't be frustrated with the result that you got. Don't be annoyed with the results you didn't get for the work you didn't put in. That's something that stands out to me all the time. It's a really important thing to remember. Because in the moment, it can feel like you're doing so much and that you're trying your hardest, and you might be trying really hard. You might be putting a lot of effort into things. But if it's not the right things, then it doesn't matter how hard you work. You know, if you want to climb up a mountain, but you spend the entire time running around the bottom of it, you're going to put in a lot of effort, but you're not going to get to where you want to go. They're not equivalent. Effort does not equal outcome. It's effort in the right places that equals outcome. You know, if you're, a lot of these examples I will use fat loss because that's, I mean, mainly you guys, and it's an easy example to use. But if your goal is fat loss, but your inputs are not eating carbs and doing HIIT workouts all the time, every day, and drinking apple cider vinegar, it might require a lot of effort to do these things, to have these inputs, but they're not prime movers. They're not going to aid you in achieving what you want. Whereas you could put in arguably less effort if your inputs are calorie deficit, strength training 3 times a week, getting my steps in. And less effort put into those things will give you a better outcome than more effort put into the previous things. So don't get caught up in the amount of effort that you're putting in, and just make sure you're putting that effort into the right places. Another really important part of progress that isn't necessarily very sexy is managing your emotions and how you react to things. We are emotional creatures. We have evolved that way. It's not a surprise to know that people react, and that a lot of the time involves food. Not everyone. Some people have very healthy relationships to food, but people that have struggled with their weight in the past tend to have some sort of emotional attachment or connection or reaction with food. So if you can manage your emotions better, i.e. rely on food less to cope with them, you will have better outcomes in your goals when they're obviously fat loss related. Because your choices around food are conscious and they're not impulsive, and you can, well, they're aligned, right? They're aligned is the most important part of that. They're aligned with your goals. They're aligned with what you want to do. They're aligned with where you want to go. Now, it's important when managing emotions to understand what the emotion is, where it comes from, and what it causes you to do. So for most people, stress is a big one. Stress eating is a large issue that a lot of people face. Now, there's multiple ways to approach this, and I'll use stress as the example, but you can do this kind of framework with any emotion. First, identify where it came from. And this, you'll normally do this after an episode has occurred. So say, something's come up at work, it's really stressed you out. You've gone home, you've eaten stuff you necessarily didn't want to. You've probably overeaten, maybe you'd call it a binge. And then you feel even worse. And this is a cycle. When you come back and you're kind of next day, you're recovered from that. This is the time that you look back and you analyze and you think about why this might have happened. So you look back, you go, right, what was the initial cause? Well, it was this thing at work, this stress at work. And you think, can I control that? Can I remove the stressor entirely? Most of the time, probably not. It's stuff outside of your control. It's stuff that you don't really have too much input over. So you can't change that bit. I'm about to sneeze. Give me 2 seconds. Bless me. Sorry. That's going to be a fucking audio spike and a half. So, most of the time, they're not things that you can massively change. You might be able to change parts of them, but for the sake of this, let's say it's something that you can't really change. It's brought on by other people. That stress is something that the input can't be changed. Now, how you're going to deal with it is something that can be changed. How you react to it. Again, we've got this locus of control where everything inside of it, we can control. It's our emotions, it's our actions, it's the way we see the world, it's the things we do. We have all control over this. And it's a very small portion of things that we can actually control. Everything outside of it how people see us, other people's actions, their emotions, events, all of this kind of stuff we don't have control over. So we need to hone in on this locus of control on things we can control, and it makes life much nicer because we're not worrying about what we can't control. So hone in on what you can control, which is how you react, and think about ways that you can react to that stressor better or more proactively. So instead of going home and feeling overwhelmed and knowing that this food gives you comfort, it gives you dopamine, it gives you serotonin, it's something that's familiar, it gives you all the right things, think about other ways that you can acquire what you want from food in other areas. And I cannot remember who brought this idea up to me, but I love it and I use it all the time. So if it is you, say something. It's the idea of a dopa menu. A dopa menu. And I absolutely love this. So more or less, it is a list of things that give you dopamine. That's exactly what it is. So for some people, it is looking at old photos. So for some people, it's going for a walk with music. For some people, it's, talking to friends or going to play, for me, maybe it's going to go play pool with some friends. You have a list of things that give you dopamine, that give you comfort, that give you that kind of same escape and factor that food might give you when you're stressed. And you take that pause. So you come in from work, you're stressed, you want to, eat the house, whatever. You pause, you get out the dopa menu, it's on your phone, in your notes section, and you start looking at things and you go, right, what can I do right now? What can I do right now? And it might just be chucking some music on and going for a walk, but you give yourself that space, you give yourself that time away from that reaction, you manage your emotions in an effective way, and all of a sudden you've got the dopamine, you've kind of got what you wanted from food, but without the trough at the other side. The thing with reacting to emotions with food is that you get this peak and you get this huge trough after. So have that ready to go, and you'll find that managing your emotions becomes much easier, and it becomes much easier to not rely on food to manage them, which is huge. If you can find effective ways to manage your emotions that don't require you to sacrifice progress, mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. Amazing. Second thing, patience. Or third thing, sorry, patience. Shit takes a long time. It will always take a long time. Again, if you already have a lot of fat to lose or a lot of muscle to build, a lot of anything, it takes a long time to achieve that. It's, we're not talking weeks. We're talking months and years. It's taken me how old am I? 22. Yeah, it's taken me like 6 years of barely missing a session and trialing different things to get to the point where today, where I'm very comfortable in my body. I'm very happy with what my body can do. It's taken me a long time and a lot of pain and like angst and being not so happy in my body. But the one thing that kept me going is that I knew I would get to a point where I was. And it was just a matter of time. You need to stop thinking about this as a short-term thing. This never will be a short-term thing. It will be a thing for as long as you are alive. And if it's not, then it won't be. And I know that sounds straightforward, but let me elaborate. If you think of it as something that is long-term, that is for the rest of your life, you will approach it as such. You will take a sustainable approach. You will take a approach that allows you to enjoy your life because you know it's not something you're pushing off until you get to a certain goal. Whereas if you think of it as a short-term fix or a short-term change, it will be one. You will maybe get to the goal. You will not sustain it, as we said before. You will bounce back to where you were before, maybe worse. You'll feel bad about yourself. You feel guilt. You'll feel shame because you've shown yourself that you can do it, quote unquote, you can do it, right? You've gotten to the place you wanted to before, but you've returned. And it's because you thought of it as a short-term change. This shit will take the rest of your life. acknowledge that, understand that. And that's not saying that you have to restrict and, there's no balance, and that's not what I'm saying. And that's not how you approach it if it's for the rest of your life. You have a dial. This shit isn't a switch, it's a dial. You can turn it up, you can turn it down, but it doesn't go off. So if you have more free time and, your partner gets involved and whatever, you can turn it up. You can turn the notch up. You can go and you can hammer in things a bit more. If things get really busy, your kids have got school, you've got more responsibility, all of this kind of thing, you dial it down. You still focus on your nutrition a little bit. You still focus on your movement, everything. That's how you will do it for the rest of your life and get results that you can sustain, is by approaching it like it is something that you will do for the rest of your life. Not by approaching it going, oh, well, it's just this, 6 weeks, this 12-week diet where I'm going to lose 20 pounds and then I'm going to not understand really how it's happened because I didn't understand the mechanisms behind how I lost that weight or fat. And then when I get off because I've got to my goal weight, I'm going to return to all my previous eating habits and bounce back up to the weight I was before, maybe even higher, and I will feel shame and I will feel guilt and I will not understand why it's happened. You can probably hear in my voice that this pisses me off because I know people like this. And you can't get through to them. And it's really difficult. But if people understood that they have to approach it like it is a thing that they will do for the rest of their life, the rest of their life, they would take more sustainable approaches. They would get better results. They would be able to keep their results. That's patience, baby. Be patient. Put the work in. 1% every day. 1%, 1%, 1%, 1%. It's patience and it's consistency. And the more you can do that, the better it will be. The better it will be. Because you're not going balls to the wall for 6 weeks. You're going a little bit, instead of balls to the wall, you're going tip against the fence, I suppose would be another way to say it. Tip against the fence for the rest of your life. And you keep going, and you keep going, and you keep pushing, and you actually keep getting better. You keep improving, rather than improve, boom, back. No one wants that. Coffee break. You will all be happy to know the coffee is now gone. So no more coffee breaks. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about showing up without motivation. And this isn't something I'm going to go into where I talk about discipline. Motivation doesn't exist. Discipline makes you do things. Motivation gets you started. Discipline keeps you going. I don't really believe in that. I do believe that you can use motivation to be your best friend, though. And not something that you have to rely on, but you can create motivation. So motivation comes from doing things we want to do. You're not motivated to do things you don't want to do. That's standard. No one wants to do, you're not motivated to do things that you think are going to be shit. And previously, your experiences of training and of, caring about your nutrition might be negative. They might be boring, they might be frustrating, they might be stressful. So why would you be motivated to do it again? It's why these people get motivated over these massive changes. These massive fad diets, because they see it as something different, something they haven't tried before, and something that is such a drastic change that it must work. So it gets them excited, it gets them motivated. But that quickly wears off when they realize how restrictive and shit it is. However, you can construct your routine and your lifestyle in a way that gives you motivation. Again, you are motivated to do the things you enjoy doing. Or you need less motivation, I suppose, but you also are kind of motivated. I have never needed motivation to go and have a pint with a friend. I have never needed motivation to listen to music. It's not something that happens. Or maybe I'm just so motivated because it's something I want to do. However, if you construct a routine that you enjoy, you will need less motivation to do it. So for example, if your training program consists of exercises that you hate and you don't want to push, and it's endless cardio on a treadmill, and it's shit, basically, are you going to want to go and do it? No. Are you going to need fuck tons of motivation to go and do it? Yes. Is that motivation going to be there? No. Whereas, if you have a routine that has exercises that are effective, but also exercises that you enjoy. It's why I'm a halfway between evidence-based and a bro guy, because I do believe that if there's an exercise that you enjoy, you're going to push it way harder than an exercise that you don't enjoy but is quote-unquote optimal. So if you have exercises and parts of your training program that you thoroughly enjoy, you're going to want to go and do them. If you enjoy running and someone makes you a training program and goes, yeah, but no, we're not going to do any running, you'd be like, well, what the fuck's going on there? I want to run, right? If you love bench and someone goes, well, actually, a dumbbell press is probably better, you want to bench. So construct things that you're excited about, that you need less motivation to go and do. Same with nutrition. If you have a diet that you fucking hate, that is so boring, that is so bland, that is so monotonous, are you going to want to eat it? No. What's going to happen when you don't want to eat it? You're going to eat other things that are more indulgent, that give you that dopamine, that give you that excitement. So what's the point? Whereas if you construct a calorie-controlled, high-protein diet that allows you room to enjoy the things that you enjoy while hitting your goals, you're not going to need motivation to eat it. You're going to want to eat it. I don't need motivation to eat the way I do. I enjoy it, so I fucking do it. I know how it makes me feel. I know I like how it tastes. There's no motivation needed because you just enjoy it. That's the most important thing. If you can create a routine and a structure that you enjoy, you're going to stick to it. You're not going to need motivation. If you hate training in the morning, don't train in the morning. If you've never tried it and you don't think you'll like it, try it and see if you like it. Some people adjust really well to it. If you hate training at peak time in the evening, go and train in the morning. Right? Like, you're not going to need motivation to go and do things that you want to do. And I've had moments where I've had to show up without motivation. So many times. Like, there are points where you won't want to go and do something and you just have to go and do it. That's life. That's life. That happens. You're not always going to be motivated to go and do things. And sometimes you do have to show up. You do have to rely on that discipline a little bit. And it's a muscle that you can train to be better, to be more effective. But it's something you want to minimize the reliance on. But understand that the sessions that you want to do the least are the ones that are most important you go and do. Because they create that identity, and this is what we're going to get onto next. They create that identity that you are someone that can do hard things. You are someone that can show up when they don't want to. And building that identity will be one of the most important things that you do on this entire journey, because you don't get change without identity change. And now we're going to go into that. A lot of people change everything about themselves but their identity. They don't think about changing their identity. They want to change their body. They want to change the clothes they wear. They want to change the car they drive. But what people don't understand is that these things reaffirm the identity that you want to reaffirm. That's all they are. They reaffirm the identity that either you want people to think you are or the identity that you think you are. So this is where it gets tricky, but also interesting. For me, I love this shit. I love doing it with clients. For example, I'm working with a client at the moment that we're trying to work on binge eating, essentially. And I've told her to write down every single little win that she gets, every single piece of affirming evidence that she doesn't binge eat, that she doesn't like, that it's something that she can break, right? So it might be, I thought about it today, but I didn't do it. I had a meal and I sat down and then I didn't eat anything after. All of these things, all of these tiny little pieces of evidence that reaffirm an identity are massive, and you need to be able to notice them. A lot of people want this physical change, but they don't understand that the thing that's going to achieve it and the thing that is going to help you maintain it is the identity change, the mental change. Instead of thinking, oh, well, I'm just a person that I'm not very consistent, or I've always been this way, or I bingy, or, these things that you tell yourself build that identity that you are someone that isn't going to achieve the things you want to achieve. If you start telling yourself, I'm someone that doesn't binge eat, I'm someone that trains 3 times a week, I'm someone that gets their steps in, I'm someone that's confident, telling yourself these things and then finding evidence to support them is huge. If you think you've got 40 years of evidence and negative self-talk that you have to break, it's not going to happen overnight. You need to start building evidence. You need to start being aware of evidence, and thinking about it isn't enough. Something happening and you go, oh, well, that's nice. That's not enough. You need to consciously write down and acknowledge these pieces of evidence to build that new identity. It's one of the most important things you'll do. And again, it will help you maintain that result that you get, that physical, mental change. It will help you stay there because it's not a costume that you've put on. It's an identity that you've adopted. You are an in-shape person. You are a fit person. You are a person that eats nutritiously. You build that evidence to create that new identity. Alex Hormozy says this, and I love it, but it's confidence isn't shouting at affirmations in the mirror. It's building an undeniable stack of proof that you are who you say you are. You need to start building that proof, essentially. And there's no win that's too big or too small. I was speaking to my friend Jaden about this recently, on his podcast actually. All wins feel the same. All evidence is the same. If you acknowledge evidence to support an identity, it doesn't matter if it's the biggest piece of evidence in the world or the smallest piece of evidence in the world. They both have an equal effect on building that identity, I believe, because you've acknowledged it. It's easier to acknowledge big ones, correct? It's harder to acknowledge small ones, correct? But if you can tune in to acknowledging those small wins, those small pieces of evidence, they will stack up the same way a big piece of evidence will. And you will get there much quicker. You think if you've got to fill a glass and the top of that glass is you having fully changed your identity, if you put a big splash in it every week, it's not going to fill up as quickly as if you put a big splash in it every week and then a couple drops a day. Acknowledge the drops, write them down physically, on your phone, in a book, whatever, and acknowledge the evidence that builds that new identity that you want to have, that is going to get you to where you want to be. That is something I cannot stress enough. And with this, it's not just physical change. It will change your entire life. This is why this episode is what it takes to change your life and not what it takes to change your body or your physique or, I hear this from clients all the time. As soon as they're putting active effort into improving their health, they begin to take action in improving other areas of their life as well. They begin to feel more confident. They begin to feel more worthy. They begin to feel more outgoing. They have a different energy about them. People like to feel that they have a consistent state of progression. People love to feel progression. And it feels great. Again, I have clients that are not at the end of their journey. There's not that there's an end, but say they're still in the process of losing fat. But they feel a million times more confident because they know that this isn't a finished product, that they're not maintaining here, that this body is constantly changing and improving and progressing where in the direction that they want it to. So that fills them with a sense of confidence where all of a sudden they're no longer ashamed of their body, because it's not that you should ever be ashamed of your body, that's not what I'm saying, but they were, right? Not that they're ashamed of their body because they've let it get to a point and then it's consistently getting worse. They're now improving it and progressing, and they don't really care what it currently looks like because they know what it's going to, and they know that this isn't the end point. And that's really important to know, that you've got a sense of progression. It feeds into other areas of life. You're more likely to try in your relationships. Your mental health gets better. You're more likely to try at your job. You're going to be more outgoing. You're going to, seek out more social activities. I cannot stress this enough, that when you focus effort into one area of your life, it drip feeds into every other area of your life. A lot of people that struggle with other things, be it mental health or their social life or work or other things, I don't think understand how important it is that they're putting effort into something, whatever it may be. It might be a sport, it might be a project, it might be, again, I think addressing a physical problem in your body and focusing on your nutrition and training and improving is a really important thing as a pillar. It should be a pillar of your life. Should be looking after your physical body. I don't understand why people can't quite grasp that. It can be difficult, especially if you've got physical issues or mental health issues or time issues. There's a lot of things that might make it more difficult, 100%. And I understand that I speak from a place of privilege, but I also speak from a place of experience in that improving my body, my physical health, has done numbers on my mental health, has done numbers for my ambition, has done numbers for my confidence. One of my favorite things about being in shape is being able to wear clothes that I want to wear and not feel uncomfortable in them. Yeah, they might not be my style all the time, but you can experiment with styles. Again, I'm not going to go off topic onto clothes, but you're just a more out there person, I find, when you're confident, because you understand that you're making that constant progression. And again, you need to build that identity. That's one thing that is massive. You can't keep telling yourself stuff like, I'm not consistent, I've always been this way, I bingy, It doesn't help at all. It does massive detriment to your progress. Tell yourself that you are the person that you want to be and build the evidence that supports that new identity. Build that new identity, build those new beliefs. It will change the way you think, it will change the way you act, it will change the way you look, it will change the way you look to other people, it will change everything. And the easiest way to do that is to keep it simple. Keep it fucking simple. Don't get caught up in what this is, this new thing, this crazy new thing, this, new diet, new training program, new event, whatever it may be. Keep it simple. Stick to the basics. Become a master in the basics and you can start to add things on top. I talked about this the other day. There are luxuries and there are essentials. Differentiate between the two. I was talking in relation to supplements. So, for example, liquid IV. I was drinking a liquid IV. I quite enjoy them. I do feel like they have some effect on me, but they're a luxury. They are not an essential. Protein, essential. Creatine, in my eyes, you can go without it, but if you can afford it, it's essential. If you can't, it's a luxury. There are things that are prime movers, that are huge movers, that will give you 90% of the way there. That's consistent resistance training. That's some form of cardiovascular exercise. That is understanding calorie input and calorie output. That is understanding protein. That is strength training. Have I said strength training? I might have said strength training. Okay, strength training a few times a week. There's very few things that you need to focus on that build the pillars of a physique, the pillars of a healthy body, the pillars of a healthy mind, and everything else is icing on top of that cake. Everything else is decoration that might add an extra 1 or 2% here and there. Focus on the essentials. Focus on training, focus on nutrition, focus on sleep, focus on stress. If you can build all of those things from the ground up and become masters in them, become a master of your nutrition, understand it. Again, this isn't me saying you need to become a fucking nutrition scientist, but understand basic nutrition, calories, proteins, carbs, fats, fiber. Understand what foods have what in. Be able to construct a diet that you're happy with, be able to construct meals that you're happy with. Training. Understand tempo. Understand technique. understand progressive overload, understand volume, understand the basics here, understand sleep, understand the temperature that your room should be, sleep schedules, blue light, very basic things, not eating too close to bedtime, understand stress management techniques. Again, I'm not a therapist, so I can't dive in too much here, but they are big pillars in your progress that will take you 90% of the way there, and that you don't need to focus on the sexy shit. Focus on the very unsexy thing. People, if you focus on unsexy shit for 6 months, people will ask you what you did. People will go, "What did you do? What did you do? What did you change? Oh my God." And they won't listen when you say it. And that's a good thing. If people aren't interested in how you got to where you got to, as soon as you start talking about it, you've done a good thing. Because you've done it a way that is sustainable. You've done it a way that people don't care about. If I sat down and went, people ask me, "Oh, how did you do that?" And I replied, "Oh, so I just cut this out my diet, and I trained in this new way where you only use fucking wine bottles." Like, people are going to get excited. People are interested. But if people get bored when you're talking about how you got to where you got to, you've done it in a good way. You've done it in a sustainable way. But focus on your pillars, build them from the ground up. And then once you've got to a point where you're happy and you feel like these are very ingrained, add some icing on top if you want. Start building the stuff on top. The supplements, the electrolytes, the whatever it might be, right? But again, without solid foundations, without focusing on the simple stuff, it's going to be much harder. Because you're not planting a tree. You're just trying to pick fruit. Terrible analogy. Oh my God, I couldn't even think then. Let me think about this for like 2 seconds. You want fruit. You're not planting a tree, which is what you should do. You should plant a tree and wait for the fruit. You're just trying to pick fruit off random trees. Nah, that is not going to work. That's not going to work. That's shit. I might even cut that. That's dreadful. I don't know how many times I can say it. Just focus on the basics. Focus on the simple stuff. Focus on the pillars. Build them sustainably to a point where you're very content and very happy, and it will do a number for everything. And don't try and have the perfect plan. Understand that you're gonna slip up. You're gonna fuck up. There's gonna be times where you want to throw it all away. There's gonna be all of this. Understand that it's just something that you build. It's just something that you do now. They are essentials, but you will fuck up. It's a learning process. You're starting all of this stuff from scratch most of the time. There's going to be times where you struggle to affirm that new identity. There's going to be times where you slip up with your nutrition. There's going to be times you skip training sessions. But it's how you react to these things. It's how you respond to them that matters. It's never the initial input. It's never the missing the training session that actually has an impact on your progress. It's when you miss a training session and you react by saying, "Oh, well, fuck it, I've missed one, so there's no point anymore." And you miss the next 10. If you react to that by, just going, "Oh, well, I'm gonna..." Sorry, my laptop locked. If you react to that by saying, "Oh, well, okay, I missed one, but I'm going to keep going." Sweet as, mate. Sweet as. It doesn't matter then, does it? You go back the next day and you're fine. Same with nutrition. If you slip up and you binge and you overeat, but you react to it by spiraling and binging for the next 2, 3, 4 days, a week, and then you think, "Oh, well, I've fucked all my progress, my weight spiked, so there's no point anymore, I give up." That's what really impacts your long-term progress. If you binge and then you wake up the next morning and you go, "Okay, let's go get my steps in. Let's eat like I plan to. Let's get a training session in." That weight comes down very quickly. That initial impact has had very little impact on your long-term progress. You just don't need it to be perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. You just need to progress over time. You need to start, you need to progress, and you'll find things that work for you that don't work for others, and things that don't work for you that work for others. It's a long time. Again, like I said, this is a lifelong thing. You've got the rest of your life to figure this shit out. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. I'm going to wrap it up here. But progress is unsexy. Be consistent. Be patient. Learn to manage your own emotions. Sometimes you'll have to show up without any motivation, but try and minimize the motivation that you need by creating a life and a routine that you enjoy. All of this will impact your identity. You need to change your identity if you want to be able to achieve the result and keep the result. Realize what that new identity is, what that new person will be. Find evidence that affirms that new identity. Write it down. Big or small, write it down and read it and realize that you're creating this new identity that fights the old one. Your result will be much easier to keep when you've got an identity that acts in alignment with that rather than trying to wear a costume. It's just you now. This will also feed into other areas of your life. That is exciting. You will be more ambitious. You will be more confident. You will be more outgoing in relationships. Your mental health will likely improve. There is a drip feed effect of making progress that trickles out into every aspect of your life. Your self-talk matters more than anything, and it helps you build that evidence. You need to talk to yourself like you would talk to a best friend. Keep it simple. Focus on the pillars. Nutrition, training, sleep, stress. Focus on those pillars. Anything on top of that is a luxury. You can focus on them if you want, but if you've got your pillars down, you will make 90% of the progress that you will ever make. This is a long game. Stay in it for the rest of your life. Think about any approach like you're going to stay in it for the rest of your life. If you can't sustain it, it's not worth doing. If you think of it as a short-term fix, it will only be a short-term fix. If you think of it like a long-term rest of your life approach, it will be a long-term rest of your life approach with a result that you can keep for the rest of your life. Level up your knowledge. Level up your input. Be consistent with it all. You don't need the perfect plan. Start from scratch. You build up from there. This has been episode 3 of The Middle Ground. What it takes to change your life. Subscribe. Spotify. YouTube. Leave a review. Leave a 5-star rating. I love you all very much. This has been sick. This is definitely in my top 3 episodes of all time. Follow me on Instagram, Jude Van Coaching. Have a good week. I will speak to you all very soon.